The veteran's mandibles clicked as he addressed the Imperial War Council, but the chamber was already buzzing with the kind of smug arrogance only a 1,000-year empire could muster. They didn't come here to listen. They came here to laugh. And they would, until the memories hit them like shrapnel. I was there. The old alien rasped, his voice carrying scars as deep as the burns across his chitin. I survived your encounter with the humans. A wave of amusement rolled through the council chamber. Humans? One aristocrat scoffed. Those primitives from the Terran backwater? Another waved a jeweled hand. We crushed their homeworld in under a cycle. What more is there to discuss? The veteran's eyes dimmed. You think you crushed Earth. You only crushed what you could see. Silence. Brief, but enough. The old warrior inhaled, chest shaking. Do you know the sound humans make before they attack? He asked. What, do they roar? An officer chuckled. The veteran slowly shook his head. No. They go quiet. That was the first moment the council felt something unfamiliar, unease. He tapped his scarred temple. When your legions invaded, I was attached to the 4th Shock Infantry. We expected a fight. We did not expect annihilation. He paused, letting the memory descend. The humans didn't come at us head-on. They didn't charge. They didn't scream. They simply vanished into the ruins of their world. High Counselor Varric leaned forward. Explain. The veteran swallowed hard. Humans fight like prey that learn to hunt. They waited. They hid. They watched us more intently than any predator I've ever encountered. They understood our supply lines within days. They mapped our communication frequencies. They learned our officer ranks by studying our uniforms while hiding under the bodies of their own dead. Several nobles winced. The veteran continued. You think them weak. But they are the only species I've ever faced who mastered warfare by losing. Gasps fluttered across the room. I fought on 500 worlds, the old soldier said, bitterness curling his voice. I have faced the supercharged war beasts of Quelmer. I have fought the hive swarms of Jinkai. I have survived the plasma tides of Wyrathal. But nothing terrified me like a wounded human staring at me while he crawled toward a grenade I thought was out of his reach. He took a slow breath before delivering the line that cracked the room's composure. Humans don't surrender. They adapt. A murmur rippled through the chamber, but the veteran wasn't finished. When we occupied their cities, they didn't rebel immediately. They didn't fight openly. They observed us. They learned our marching patterns. They learned the timing of our patrols. They learned how our armor locked and unlocked. He lifted a trembling hand. And then they stole it. The council erupted. Impossible! Our armor requires genetic coding. It is impossible for a species without mandibles to wear it. It wasn't perfect, the veteran admitted. But perfect enough to infiltrate our own barracks. That was the first night we lost an entire regiment without a single transmission. His voice dropped into that quiet, haunted register only soldiers recognized. They used our weapons against us. Our armor. Our comms. They mimicked our language with terrifying accuracy. Even their attempts at impersonating our gait, those awkward, stomping steps, became a kind of psychological warfare. You'd hear footsteps that almost sounded imperial, only to realize, too late, that they were human. Counselor Varric's crest twitched. What did they do with the bodies they took the armor from? The veteran didn't answer immediately. When he spoke, his voice was a whisper. They booby-trapped them. A messenger drone in the corner beeped, startling several nobles. The veteran didn't flinch. We lost 4 cities because your generals assumed humanity's weakness was compassion. In truth, it was their last weapon. They let us believe we'd broken them. They let us think they were a defeated species. He stared at each counselor as if counting the seconds they had left to live. Humans fight best when they've already lost. A young strategist raised a hand nervously. But Earth was destroyed. The planet is uninhabitable now. The veteran's jaw shook. For a moment, pity flickered in his battered eyes. You fools, he whispered. You think humanity lives on one world? Confusion spread. The veteran continued, voice cracking with memory. We thought Earth had one species. But humans had hundreds, thousands, of cultures. Tribes. Nations. Do you understand what that means? Blank stares. They were already unified the moment you attacked. You didn't fight a planet. You fought a diaspora. Every survivor, every miner, every farmer, every factory worker became a soldier. No draft. No orders. Just vengeance so old it felt like instinct. The council chamber dimmed as the lighting shifted for evening session. Shadows rippled across the veteran's scarred face, and for the first time in centuries, the Imperial Council felt cold. The veteran leaned forward, mandibles clacking in a slow, deliberate rhythm. You didn't destroy their world, he said softly. You gave them a reason to leave it. An alarm blared throughout the chamber. A young officer rushed in, eyes wide, crest trembling. High Counselors, we have contact. From whom? Varric snapped. The officer swallowed. Unknown vessels emerging from slip space. Hundreds of them. No, thousands. They're broadcasting one message. The council froze. Put it through, Varric ordered. A voice crackled over the chamber speakers, deep, gravelly, unmistakably human. To the Galactic Empire. This is payback. The veteran exhaled in resignation. I warned you, he said. Humans go quiet right before they attack. And then, from orbit, something enormous cast a shadow over the capital. No one in the Imperial Council chamber spoke. Not when the human voice finished its broadcast. Not when the lights flickered from orbital interference. Not even when the holographic map updated to display thousands of incoming contacts, each marked with the same designation. Terran Exodus Fleet, Unclassified Formation. Varric's throat sac tightened. Impossible. They shouldn't have this many ships. The veteran didn't look up. They didn't have them, he murmured. They built them. A senator scoffed. Built? With what? Their planet was in ruins. Scrap, the veteran said. Junk. Asteroids. Mining rigs. Disassembled freighters. Humans can turn a kitchen knife into a battlefield weapon. Give them a star system's worth of debris and they'll turn it into a mobile apocalypse. The chamber trembled as the alien capital's orbital shields powered to maximum. A deep hum pulsed through the walls, an empire's last attempt at confidence. From the viewport behind the dais, the twilight sky glowed with streaking contrails. The humans were entering atmosphere. A junior tactician's crest tightened to its roots. High Counselors, the enemy fleet is not assuming standard formation. Their vessels appear irregular, mismatched, and... The veteran finished for him. Human. The first Terran ship broke through the atmosphere like a wounded beast held together by stubbornness alone. It was asymmetrical, scorch-marked, scarred with re-entry burns. Yet its engines screamed with the fury of a dying star. Activate ground batteries! Varric barked. The command relayed instantly, but the gun emplacements below didn't fire. Instead, the tactical display filled with static. A single Terran signal pulsed through the interference. EMP package delivered. Step 2 inbound. An admiral's crest flattened in fear. They neutralized planetary defenses from orbit? How? Our shield matrix absorbs electromagnetic. The veteran cut him off. They didn't use EMP. They used your own shield generators. His mandibles clicked grimly. A resonance overload. They studied your frequencies during the occupation. He didn't need to add the obvious. Humans had watched, recorded, adapted, and waited years to strike. A low rumble rolled across the capital. The first Terran pod slammed into the city. Then another. Then 10. Then 100. The council chamber vibrated as a shockwave surged through the marble floor. Drop pods? They dared deploy soldiers here? A counselor spat. The veteran shook his head. Not soldiers. The chamber doors burst open as a breathless officer staggered in, armor cracked. High Council! The humans, they're not deploying infantry. What then? They're deploying. The officer swallowed hard. Walkers. Confusion. Murmurs. A few snorts. Primitive exosuits? Varric scoffed. We have Class 5 Titans. Crush them. The officer shook his head violently. No, these aren't exosuits. They're construction rigs. Modified. Barely held together. The veteran exhaled sharply. Mining rigs. He looked at the council with an expression that was half pity, half disbelief. Do any of you know what a human miner does with a machine that can survive a collapsing moon? The sounds from outside answered for him. Metal screaming. Stone shattering. Energy shielding rupturing. And beneath it all, deep, deliberate, metallic footfalls. The human walkers advanced. The imperial capital descended into chaos. Through the shattered windows of the council chamber, towering silhouettes marched between the spires, their improvised armor scraping sparks as they tore through elite soldiers like a farmer clearing brush. One minor rig, six-legged, bristling with repurposed plasma torches, rammed an imperial tank, lifted it like a toy, and hurled it into a government tower. Another fired tungsten rods at hypersonic velocity, every shot a meteor that punched through layers of shielding. Each machine bore crude, hand-painted words. For Earth. For home. This is for MOM. Payback Tur 01. Warriors stared in horror. These aren't military assets. An admiral gasped. They're angry civilians. The veteran nodded gravely. Humans don't send armies when they can send families. A bolt of plasma lit the sky. One rig collapsed, 3 legs blown off, but instead of retreating, the cockpit hatch burst open and a woman in scorched armor crawled out, dragging a pulse cannon nearly her size. She fired until her weapon melted. Then she threw it at the nearest Imperial soldier and reached for a knife. Even the hardened council guards flinched. Varric's voice wavered. Deploy orbital reinforcements. No use, the trembling tactician whispered. The Terran fleet has surrounded the planet. They are broadcasting something. Another threat? Varric hissed. No, sir. Music. Music? The chamber filled with static, then drums. Slow, heavy, ancestral drums. The kind that called humans to war long before they had metal or fire. The veteran bowed his head. I have heard those drums, he said softly. On Earth, during their final stand. That rhythm means only one thing. Which is? Varric demanded. The veteran stared at him, hollow-eyed. It means every human alive has decided you need to be removed. Before Varric could respond, an explosion obliterated the far wall of the chamber. The shockwave hurled counselors across the room. Dust choked the air. Rubble rained down. A colossal humanoid silhouette stepped through the smoke, battered, patchworked, welded with dozens of mismatched plates. A miner's rig, turned into a war god. Its speakers crackled. Council chamber located. Beginning extraction. Varric coughed, rising to his feet in a daze. Extraction? Of what? The chamber? The city? The veteran chuckled weakly. No. You. The rig's clawed arm extended. Plasma cutters flared to life. That was the moment every noble realized the horrifying truth. Humans weren't here to conquer the Empire. They were here for everyone who ordered Earth's destruction. One by one. The rig advanced. Above the bone-white towers of the capital, a human battleship fired a single round, an orbital drop shell the size of a transport shuttle. It struck the palace courtyard and blossomed into a radiant sphere of shimmering particles. The veteran's eyes widened. Oh no, that's not a bomb. Varric clutched a pillar. Then what is it? A recall beacon. He raised his head toward the ceiling as more shells descended, their impacts forming a web of pulsating light. They're calling more. More what? Varric whispered. The veteran's mandibles clicked. More humans. The drums intensified. The shadows lengthened. And from the sky, something new began to fall. The sky over the imperial capital was no longer a sky. It was a river of steel and fire. Thousands of human ships descended, each one unique, cobbled together from mining rigs, freighters, and scavenged derelicts. Some looked like nothing more than patchwork trash. Others gleamed with improvised weaponry that defied logic. From the council chamber, the old veteran watched in quiet awe. "They build for survival," he muttered. "They fight for vengeance. And they never quit." The council screamed, but the words felt hollow against the roar of thousands of vessels striking in unison. Ground defenses fired frantically, plasma cannons spitting fire and energy shields flaring. Imperial tanks barreled into the streets to intercept. And yet, every strike was met with uncanny timing. Humans anticipated, adapted, and countered. A tank would fire, only to have its ammunition ripped apart midair by a tungsten rod hurled from a makeshift catapult rig. A shielded tower would melt under a focused laser, emerging from a ship disguised as a supply freighter. "They think chaos is their ally," the veteran whispered. "Humans make chaos their weapon." The first human, Walker, entered the central plaza. Standing 12 meters tall, patched together from scavenged industrial frames and reinforced with repurposed alien alloys, it moved with a deliberate, almost playful menace. Its cockpit opened, and a grinning human woman leapt out, dragging a pulse cannon twice her size. She twirled, firing wildly, each shot precise enough to obliterate Imperial soldiers and vehicles alike. The council shrieked. "Stop her! She can't be stopped," the veteran said quietly. "Humans don't fight fairly. They fight smart." Suddenly, the veteran noticed the rhythm. The pounding drums that had started from orbit were now joined by hundreds of others across the city. Human soldiers, civilians turned warriors, stomped, ran, and banged on debris, synchronizing every movement with the pulse of the drum. It was not music. It was coordination. A battlefield orchestra that the Imperials couldn't comprehend. "They don't need strategy," whispered the veteran. "The battlefield is their strategy." Another wave hit. This time, humans emerged from hidden subway tunnels and collapsed service corridors. Their bodies were small compared to the walkers, but each carried explosive packs, customized rifles, and jury-rigged grenades. They didn't charge blindly. They flanked, baited, and drew Imperial forces into kill zones the way predators do. A young officer screamed from a console. They're using our own communication frequencies. They copied our signals." "Of course they did," the veteran said. "Humans do their homework. They learn everything they can, then they hit you where it hurts the most." The council's remaining members huddled behind crumbling pillars, staring out at the chaos. Their airships and elite troops fell in rapid succession, each strike more humiliating than the last. Imperial pride, centuries in the making, was shredded in hours. A counselor tried to speak. We can regroup. Reinforcements are on the way. The human fleet cannot sustain." "They will," the veteran interrupted. "Because they don't fight for territory, for glory, or for medals. They fight for memory, for home, for revenge." He turned as a massive explosion tore through the courtyard. The central palace was hit, sending towering fragments of obsidian-like metal into the streets. Imperial guards screamed, trying to escape, only to be met by a swarm of humans on jetpacks, leapfrogging between debris with insane agility. And then came the shockwave. Not a conventional weapon. Not missiles. Not plasma cannons. Something else. The humans unleashed a swarm of drones, repurposed mining units, cargo bots, and planetary probes, all rigged to explode on proximity to any Imperial armored unit. Hundreds of walkers fell. Thousands of soldiers were incinerated. And through the smoke, the humans pressed forward, grinning, laughing, even mocking the Empire with crude hand signals and taunts in broken alien tongues. Varek's crest flattened in terror. "This cannot be happening. They are primitive." They are not primitive," the veteran said quietly, almost to himself. "They are inevitable." Through the chaos, one human ship, enormous and makeshift, descended directly above the council chamber. Its hull was a mosaic of armor plates scavenged from dozens of different worlds. Antennae and cannons jutted at impossible angles. And emblazoned across its side, painted in red, were words every council member would never forget. Earth remembers. A second later, it fired. The energy was unlike anything the Empire had ever seen. Not destructive in a conventional sense, it didn't blow apart the chamber. It lifted it. The council members, their guards, and Varric himself were sucked upward, suspended midair as if the laws of gravity had been rewritten. The veteran's mandibles clicked. Magnetohydrodynamic resonance coupled with gravity modulation, he said matter-of-factly. They reverse-engineered our orbital tech, faster than we ever could. As the council floated, helpless, the human pilot's voice echoed. Greetings. You wanted a warning. We hope you've listened. A shockwave of laughter and shouting carried over the plaza. Soldiers, civilians, even children, humans of all ages, were now participating in the chaos. They fought as one organism, adapting instantly to losses, improvising weaponry in real time, and always anticipating Imperial moves. Varric's screeching protests were cut off as a human pod swooped into the chamber, claws extended. The veteran stepped aside, arms raised in warning. The pod grabbed Varric, lifting him high above the plaza. The council screamed as the pilot leapt out of the pod, landing with perfect precision. Do you know what humans do when they're underestimated? She asked, voice dripping with calm menace. The chamber doors shattered behind her as more pods arrived. The remaining councilors were swept into the streets, their airships disabled, and their elite guards thrown into improvised pits. The veteran watched in grim satisfaction as the humans executed their plan with terrifying precision. There were no mistakes, no hesitation, only relentless, brutal efficiency. And through it all, a kind of dark humor surfaced, taunting, mocking, humiliating the Empire at every turn. Finally, the city fell silent. Smoke curled across the broken spires. The sky was littered with wreckage, sparks, and scorched human banners fluttering from captured towers. The veteran surveyed the devastation. You see, he said, voice low and steady, humans don't just win battles. They rewrite the rules of war. And when they return, empires remember. He turned toward the captured councilors. And when humans deal with those who underestimated them, mercy is optional. The sound of human drums resumed, faint at first, then swelling across the rubble-strewn plaza. It was a rhythm older than any empire, older than most stars. A rhythm that reminded every surviving alien that humanity was not to be toyed with. And somewhere in the rubble, the human pilots smiled. The Empire had fallen in less than a standard cycle. Not with elegance. Not with honor. But with chaos so absolute it would haunt every surviving alien for centuries. The veteran stood atop a fractured tower, overlooking the plaza below. The humans had paused, not because they were finished, but because they had grown bored of unnecessary cruelty. Their victory was assured. Their point had been made. Varric, the once proud High Counselor, now hung upside down from a repurposed crane, dangling helplessly over a crater. His crest twitched with fear. This is madness. We are an empire. We are. A human soldier, barely taller than Varric's knee but bristling with scavenged weaponry, kicked him in the chest. You are dead, maybe. Learn the rest later. The veteran chuckled darkly. No, he said. They are not cruel. They are efficient. Humans do not kill for fun, they kill to survive, to punish those who wrong them, and to send a message. Another explosion rocked the plaza. Sparks rained down as the last of the Imperial ground units collapsed, their armor twisted and useless. The humans moved systematically, disarming, disabling, and neutralizing threats with uncanny coordination. Even the massive orbital ships above were being disabled by human drones in seconds. You call this revenge? Varric shouted, spittle flying. The veteran's mandibles clicked in response. Yes. But it is also a lesson. A woman in patchwork armor approached the veteran, dragging a severed Imperial weapon as if it were a trophy. Did you know? She said, wiping grime from her brow. We didn't even need our full fleet? They expected a fight. They expected soldiers. We didn't give them a fight, they gave them fear. The veteran nodded. Exactly. They fight smarter, not harder. And they always adapt. That is humanity. You cannot predict them. You cannot control them. You can only respond, and even then, often too late. Varric tried to speak again, but the human raised a rifle, pointed directly at his crest. We promised a warning. Consider this lesson delivered. Next time, it won't be just your counsel. The veteran's eyes scanned the battlefield. Humans were everywhere, civilians, soldiers, engineers, and scavengers, all moving as one organism. Every attack by the Empire had been countered, turned, or repurposed. Every miscalculation exploited. Every arrogance punished. They underestimated us once. The veteran murmured, almost to himself. They thought humans were simple. They thought we were weak. They thought victory would be easy. And they are learning, in the most painful way imaginable. A small child emerged from the rubble, carrying a scavenged plasma launcher almost bigger than himself. He fired at a fleeing Imperial mech, toppling it with a precise shot. Another human laughed, and clapped him on the back. Good shot, kid. That's how you make them remember. The veteran looked at the child and thought of his own species, of battles fought and lost to hubris. This is what I've been trying to warn them about for decades, he said. They never listen. They never take humans seriously. And every time, they pay the price. The plaza fell silent as the last of the Imperial soldiers surrendered, or fled into the wreckage, too broken or terrified to continue. The human pilot approached the veteran, crouching to his level. You were right, she said quietly. We don't surrender. We adapt. And we remember. The veteran allowed a smile. And now your Empire knows. The humans began to clean up, salvaging what they could from the wreckage, repairing their walkers, and patching together ships from the debris. Even in victory, they were practical, efficient, and terrifyingly organized. Varric, still dangling, shouted, You think this ends here? We will rebuild. We will crush you next time. The veteran shook his head. No. You won't. Because next time, humans won't wait for your arrogance to invite them back. They will come for you first, and they will not hesitate. A human soldier approached Varric, tapped him on the shoulder with the barrel of his rifle. Message received, he said with a grin, before tossing him into a makeshift containment pod for later interrogation. The veteran surveyed the wreckage one last time. Cities were in ruins, Imperial pride shattered, and survivors scattered. But he knew humanity would rebuild, smarter, faster, more dangerous. They always did. Above the skyline, the human fleet regrouped, their ships patched together with welded hulls, mismatched engines, and crude symbols painted across their sides. They looked like a ragtag mob, but the veteran knew better. Each ship carried the soul of the humans who had survived, who had fought, and who had refused to yield. They underestimate us, he said softly. Every time. And every time, they die for it. A human pilot's voice crackled over comms. Galactic Empire? Consider this a friendly warning. Humans never forget. Humans never forgive. And humans always win, eventually. The veteran closed his eyes. Yes, he whispered. They do. From the rubble, the first human flags were raised, tattered, scorched, but defiant. Words painted across them in bold strokes. Earth remembers. You should have listened. Humanity wins. The Empire had been humbled. Broken. Shattered. And above all, they had learned the truth. Never underestimate a human. Because when humans fight, when humans survive, when humans adapt, they are unstoppable. And the galaxy would never forget it.